let's play this clip too from Joe Biden. I mean, the most impressive thing I have to say about Biden was sort of like the way that the crowd greeted him. I mean, it literally went on for like 8 minutes. But
do you want to take a look at that, Sam? Or
yeah, let's just play that for a moment. But then I want to get to the other part, which I thought was sort of like I really appreciated, and it was interesting that they included this. But go ahead. And just keep in mind, this is happening at like midnight. Like, I don't know, like
11:30 Eastern, 10:30 in Chicago. Yeah.
That went on for like 5 or 7 minutes. I mean, largely people are just so grateful that he did ultimately, step aside. I mean, I think there's a lot of things, again, we've talked about foreign policy aside, it's been an extraordinary change in the mainstream Democratic disposition on what government's supposed to provide, what our economy can look like. And this just, it's not much of it's not a big thing, but it was interesting where Biden was talking about how his economic policies have changed the country, but he makes a point to basically say that he perceives his economic policy to have been an ideological break with other Democrats, which I thought was really interesting because we haven't heard that acknowledgement from him in the past, that there was a self-conscious break with the neoliberal policies that Bill Clinton really embraced. And frankly, Barack Obama did too. Here is Biden.
We've fundamentally transformed how our economy grows, from the middle out and the bottom up instead of the top down. My dad used to say there wasn't a whole hell of a lot to drop down on my kitchen table at the end of the month. I come from a basic middle-class family, 3-bedroom house, 4 kids, a grandpop living with us, decent neighborhood, but never a penny to spare. And look, that top-down notion never worked. A lot of Democrats didn't think it worked, but thought it worked, but it doesn't. And when we did all that, what we've done, everybody can do well. Everybody.
I mean, that's, look.
Revisionist history on his own record, but as president, it was a shift, which was good.
Yeah. I mean, and he may have been talking about himself for all we know when he said there was a lot of Democrats who thought, but that top down is trickle down economics. And it was, obviously it was a Ronald Reagan, sort of espoused by Ronald Reagan, and his, with Art Laffer, one of his top sort of economic advisors, who had this notion that the more money we give to rich people, and the more money we allow rich people to keep through their exploitation of labor and resources that the government provides, then they'll go and spend it, and it will literally trickle down, like a golden shower, almost dropping down on people. And in fact, it doesn't turn out to be the case. The famous saying is that a rich man buys one loaf of bread a day, just like anybody else. And so, but if you give more people the opportunity to buy one loaf of bread, you're going to be selling more loaves of bread. That's
Yeah.
basically the bottom line.
It's interesting. I mean, I know this is kind of palace intrigue stuff, right? We were joking about I maybe get more enjoyment about that out of that than some, like Nancy Pelosi, and is kind of admitting she forced Biden out of the race, and there were a lot of rumblings that there were concerns, and I don't know how authentic this was, but I think there were people that were trying to do some blitz primary to get their kind of Democrat in as the nominee. There were efforts to do that. And I always said that this can be solved if Biden drops out and just endorses Kamala Harris because his delegates are pledged to him. And then that's exactly really, what happened. And it was avoided altogether. And
I should say Pelosi in an interview conceded that's why. That's what ended her attempt to have the big thing, was that they didn't know. In her conversation with Ezra Klein, she said, we didn't know that he was going to drop out on that Sunday. And then by the time that we all sort of like realized what was going on, he had already endorsed Harris. And so we didn't have the opportunity to do the crazy primary they thought they were going to do.
Which is, I think Biden's legacy will be genocide for the most part. And so I struggle with giving him praise specifically at this moment. But I will say that that was a good move on his part to close the door on some of those vultures who may have been wanting to return to those kinds of politics. And the palace intrigue of that is that he apparently blames Pelosi and Obama for forcing him out, but not Harris, who he says was not, stuck with him the entire time, which is why I do feel there's some shrewdness on her part, because this was the one guy that could propel her to the top of the ticket. If she stays close to him during this turbulent period and looks loyal, he'd be more inclined to endorse her, and that's what happened. And so with all the efforts to Shapiro wanted to be in this blitz primary, those kinds of folks that the Obama world was pushing, who have more of that neoliberal bent. It's a good part of Biden's legacy that he maybe foreclosed that possibility and probably got some assurances from Harris. Now that we're seeing a lot of Brian Deese and some of his other economic people that are seemingly kind of transitioning to her campaign as well, he made it so that his legacy could continue, at least in this area on economic policy. Fingers crossed, there's still a long ways to go, but probably did get a sense that Harris could further that. And the indications that she's keeping some of those better economic people on board make me hopeful on that front. So that's where I'll give Biden credit.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.